And I always have the saying, I said, you know, think of me what you want, but when that bell rings, get out of my way. Yeah. Doctors began to realize that more people were dying on the streets in America than in Vietnam. Studies showed that the emergency treatment and quick transportation of our wounded soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines was making a significant difference. In 1970, President Ronald Reagan was serving as the governor of California. One of his acts as governor was the signing of the Wadsworth-Townsend Act. This put the practice of paramedicine into law. These are the experienced ones. You could see it in their faces. The carved lines and gray hair is a symbol of the experiences that these old souls could tell. And although tired with aches and pains, they continue to give their all. It is their badge of honor. When the program started, many of the first paramedics had come home from Vietnam and had served as Navy corpsmen and Army medics. They were the best, and now they are gone and retired. Although the first generation made it look easy, the second generation embraced the program and took it a step further. Many have served over 20 years and soon they will be retired too. Once they are gone, the 20 to 30-year vet with enormous experience will be no more. What you are about to see are those who are a mere handful of the community they represent and is an open and honest interview of those in the field.
"31 years, 26 years as a paramedic and 31 total as a fireman."
I've been on the department for 28 years, about 24 of those as a paramedic.
August will be 20 years this year.
And how about the paramedic program?
I've been a paramedic for 14 years.
For 25 years.
I've been a paramedic approximately 24 years now.
35 years. I did 23 years with LA City. I retired. Now I have 12 years with LA County Fire.
Okay. How long have you been a paramedic for?
About 17 years.
Been a paramedic for 31 years and been on the department for about 30.
26 years.
26.
I think it started out probably as most little boys start out, you want to be a fireman, except I had a next door neighbor. I grew up in Culver City, and I had a next door neighbor who was a Culver City fireman. And we lived in the district where he worked. It was a small town. They only had 3 stations, and it was kind of cool. His name was Matt Matheson, and we called him, all the kids in the neighborhood called him Uncle Matt.
I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to be trained and be qualified in making a difference. I felt limited as a firefighter. We'd go on scene and my ability to help people would end with the amount of training that I had. I felt a need to take a step further.
Originally, I wanted to follow in the footsteps of my father, who was a police officer, and he had a nice long career, and he inspired me to do something in the public service sector. And he couldn't imagine his daughter dealing with what he called the scum of the earth. And as a police officer, you're never the hero. No one's ever happy to see you arrive. And he thought, what a better position for me, especially with my personality, would be a firefighter. And I had thought about doing the job as a firefighter. But he set me up on a couple ride-alongs, and I realized that the fire service has a lot to do with medicine as well. And at the time, I was a veterinary technician at an animal hospital, and I really showed a lot of interest in how the body works and emergency medicine and adrenaline and trauma patients, but in the animal world. And I realized that it transfers over perfectly into the human world, and that's what paramedics do, is they handle the same things that we were doing in the animal hospital. So with those two interests colliding, and he set me up on some ride-alongs, and followed by fire technology classes, and then 20 years later, here I am.
Probably like a lot of guys of my generation, the TV show Emergency.
I can remember way back, way before I got hired, when I was a young guy in elementary school. I saw some fire trucks in the neighborhood. It was very intriguing to me to be on that fire engine. So very early in my life, 6, 7 years old, I knew what I wanted to do. then the show Emergency came around. That really solidified that this is what I want to do.
I was working at a gas station, and I wanted to be a marine biologist. And one of the guys I was working with, Jim O'Connell, said he was going to leave the job at the gas station, was going to become a firefighter. And I asked him how he did it and what processes he went through, and it sounded like something I would want to do. And I never really thought about it before, but when he told me what he was going to do, it sparked an interest in me. So I did all the right steps, prepared for an interview, went down and took the test, and 3 years later I was a fireman.
Actually, there's this, and a lot of people I've talked to said the same thing. There was this show called Emergency, and my dad, we were watching the show because every Saturday we'd watch that show. And my dad said, if you're going to be like anybody when you grow up, you be like those two guys. And I said, okay. And trying to be like the show and trying to please my dad, I went for it.
Well, I sort of kind of fell into it. It wasn't like an early plan. I never envisioned doing this. I was an ER nurse and got to know the medics and saw that they were having more fun than I was working in the ER, and had a better benefits package in retirement, and I said, huh, maybe that's the way to go.
No, not even close.
I struggled with this one. I had no real expectations. I didn't know what to think. It has evolved into more than I could ever have expected.
It's not. I think that the public has a different perspective of what the fire service is. I was pleasantly surprised that it was so much more. It had a lot more to do with family, camaraderie, lifelong friendships that I didn't even expect to have. In fire service, I've had great experience with my job and as being on the job, and even being a female, you're not sure how you're going to be accepted, but from the start, I've been very accepted, and I've, like I said, great friendships, male and female on the job. So it's better than I thought it could ever be.
Yes, and more, in good and bad.
Yeah, you go in, you think everything's going to be rosy. You think everything, you're going to be saving lives on a daily basis. But there's a lot of things that you learn early that being a paramedic teaches you. It wears you down physically. You're up at night. All the runs aren't glamorous. There's a lot of vomit. There's a lot of other things that aren't particularly very nice. So I think you learn that early, that you've got to really want to help somebody to do this job.
It was harder than I thought, but once I got out in the field as a paramedic, I felt that PTI had taught me everything I needed to learn, pretty much.
It was more than I expected and then some, and it's been an experience. So it really, what people perceive, what they see in the shows, what they see in the news is very little compared to what we actually see and do out in the field. So it was an eye-opener. Was it everything you expected?
Yes and no.
It's really given me, people call it a negative outlook on life, but I just say that it's truth-based outlook. I've seen people at the worst possible circumstances in their life.
So I guess to answer the question, its effect on me has created this job has created a way for me to find and define myself.
I think that I wish I had that naive perspective that they have of this world. And when I'm at the baseball field, I cringe every time a kid collides at home, and I'm thinking, oh my God, we have to hold C-spine, or we have to go and do an assessment, and I always am jumping out of my seat, and they always look at me like, are you gonna go check them out? So I kind of feel like I'm not like the normal moms, And so I see danger before it happens. I always tell my kids, don't wear the helmet, do all these things, because I know what bad things can happen to you. And I wish I didn't. I wish I didn't have the visual perspective of what bad things can happen to anybody. And I think it makes me a nervous Nelly more than I would like to be. So I think it's robbed me of being naive, just going throughout the day thinking everything's rainbows and daisies. I see the potential sit in every situation, and it's a negative potential. So I wish I didn't have that.
You know, that's hard to answer, because what would you be like without the job? You'd have to know you're the alternate you. I think you definitely see a different side to humanity that most people don't see, and that is the side that cops and people who work in emergency rooms and a few other select people see, which is the trite phrase, the dark underbelly of humanity, the dregs of society. So I think it can jade your view of what everybody's like.
I think over the years it's made me a better person. When I'm at home, I feel comfortable around my family in emergencies. Sometimes they think I move a little too slow because everything to them is a true emergency, and I know what a true emergency is now, so I may not move. But I think it's made me, working in the different economic areas of the city, it's made me realize how other people live, and it's made me respect the different types of people we have in our community.
I feel more competent to be able to handle incidents in life in general, at work and off work, dealing with people, not having a better than thou attitude towards people because I'm a firefighter or fireman or paramedic or safety worker. My attitude towards people used to be, why did this guy call again? What an idiot. We're going on him again. And then I realized that these calls are job security. If it wasn't for these people, I'd be out of job. So on one hand, I'm cursing them, but on the other hand, I'm going, gee, I'm glad this guy called and needs our help. And it's affected me a lot, and hopefully to make me a better person.
It's affected me. We're going to go over some pros and cons here. What I consider a pro is I've become very streetwise. I've learned what the world is really like because I'm in the middle of it. I'm in the middle of when things are at their worst. It's allowed me to fix problems, bad problems that the average citizen wouldn't know what to do at the drop of a hat. There's the other side of that coin, meaning that now I know a little too much, I think, and I kind of wish I had that naivete or that innocence that I no longer have.
It takes its toll on your physical body, and kind of changes your outlook on your fellow man. Not for the better either, unfortunately.
You know, my family definitely changed my temperament. My family had to deal with anger and screaming, and you know, it's just the stuff that goes along with that. You know, missing things because I was always at work, and then just coming home and being tired and irritable, and no patience. You know, I can't, to this day, I can't stand in lines. I hate when the phone rings. Traffic I don't do well in, and I wasn't like that before I got this job. This job really changed me in that regard, and my family too.
My wife and my kids have seen me through my highest highs and carried me through my lowest lows. They've been there encouraging me through school. They've been there to lift me up again during the low times, and so I think it's given those closest to me an opportunity to see who I am and what this job is about.
I think my mom worries more. She went through my whole dad's career as being a police officer, and he's retired now, and now she's got me to worry about. So I think my mom worries. My dad's proud. My kids, they feel like they're robbed sometimes because I don't make it to every baseball game. I'm not home for every holiday, but I think they're proud of me. As equally disappointed as they are that I'm not there for certain events, they're proud of me just the same. So it's, I don't get to go on the normal weekend vacations that everyone else goes on because I'm at work, and then I'm off during the week when everyone else is working or in school. So scheduling wise, in a social life and an outside world, it makes it difficult.
Again, that's difficult to say because you don't have the alternate you to bounce off of. I think that your wife or significant other definitely has to be somebody who is a lot more independent and able to function without you for anywhere from 24 hours to several days. And I think they have to get used to somebody who can be pretty damn cynical about the rest of the population.
I think the biggest thing is the work schedule. Initially, there's many people who have husbands or wives that work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, have no idea the platoon schedule that we work, and I think it takes some adjustment. I think the family, I think it's a good thing. You have a lot of time at home, but you are gone a lot in between. So initially it's very rough on the family, but after you've done it a few years, I think they work it out and you work it out, and then it ends up being a good thing.
My wife used to like to hear the stories that happened at work because they were always about fires and pulling lines and extrication and working with tools. And then when it became on a more personal level where people died in front of me or people were in pain, it was too much for her to handle. So I've had to internalize a lot of stuff because my wife doesn't want to hear it, and it's made it a little harder to deal with. But it's made me a better person. But the hard part is dealing with people that need our help, and especially children that have no control over their lives.
That's a real loaded question, because the way this job affects you, it also changes those who are intimately and close around you. I'm one of those statistics that ended up getting divorced, and it's because a lot of people, I've changed, and I know I've changed. That's why I go to therapy on a regular basis. I advise that for anybody. But you become totally different, and you start looking differently even at those closest around you. So I'm single now, and yeah, it affects not only you, but it affects those around you as well.
Well, that was years of working at bad stations, bad assignments. When we were being forced to work so much overtime, it was basically you either at work or you were home sleeping, trying to catch up on your sleep. So it took a toll on the family, and working in some of the really rough areas, the abuse you put up with, it just kind of made you kind of a sour, kind of sarcastic individual, I think, for a while in my life. Not a good thing.
Were you on full arrest at the Elks Lodge the other day? And I said, yeah. And it turned out that guy was a real close, long-time friend of this fireman's dad. He'd grown up with him. And I never followed up to see how things ended up, but the engineer's name was Dan, and he had told me that This gentleman's name was Gordy, they called him, and he got discharged right before Thanksgiving and walked out of the hospital. Full arrest, they just really don't do too well afterwards. I don't think too many of them end up with the same lives they had before the full arrest. And this guy did, and that was the only one in my career, and to be a part of that was, I mean, I'll never forget that one to my dying day, just because the guy had such a close relationship with somebody else in the department.
There's more than one. The excitement of tillering truck 27 during Christmas time, lights and sirens down the boulevard decorated for Christmas, people lining the streets, was one of those I'm really doing this moments. That's definitely left a mark. Another day at the station, we got a knock on the door, and a young lady came to the door and said, "Do you remember me?" And this was Kathy. This was a patient we had about a month earlier in full cardiac arrest. I don't think any of us really expected much of an outcome for her. And the next thing we know, she's at the door talking to us, hugging us, and thanking us. And that really told me you're doing the right thing. You're with the right people, you're with the right team, and you actually made a difference. And that's been my goal, is just to make a difference.
My best day on this job was it was the badge ceremony at the drill tower, and everyone goes through their drill tower experience and how difficult it was, and as trying as it was. But to stand there and see my parents sitting in the audience, and to see my dad and the look that he had on his face, and that proud look, and it's the first time I'd seen him cry as an adult. I saw him cry when my grandparents passed away when I was a kid, but that as an adult, it's the first time I ever seen my dad cry, which was a happy cry. He was proud, and it was that moment that I realized all that hard work led up to that, to kind of pay back, because he encouraged me to do this job, and for him to see my badge being pinned on 20 years ago was probably the best day on this job.
The days, there's actually 2 days I look back on and I go, you know what, I made a difference. And they were both younger females that were asthmatic, who we literally got there in the nick of time, and were able to save their lives. And a lot of the incidents we go on are people who are at the end of their life, and you may save their life for a day or two, but the reality is they're meeting their maker sometime soon. And you go on a lot of people who you may save their life, but they're a heroin junkie and they'll be doing this again, and what kind of life do they really have? But to go on somebody who has a true medical emergency, who didn't participate in their jacking up their own health functions, and who is a productive citizen, is fairly rare. And to actually pull them back from that last minute or so of they would be dead, that's something I think you can look on and go, well, you know what, maybe the training, the experience of having learned how to make an instantaneous decision and go for it, that one I can look back on and go, yeah, I made a difference there.
We had a run. I was working Rescue 64, and we had a run that a teacher took a bullet through the head from a stray bullet while he was teaching a classroom. Now you may want to ask me why that's a good day. It's not a good day having a call like that. But to go in there and being able to do something positive for this patient, and actually do something that saved his life, makes you feel good. This particular teacher ended up having a productive life. And my initial thought of when I seen this patient, thought that he had no chance of living. And for him, we actually went back and saw him months later. And for him to lead a productive life after taking a bullet to the head, maybe because of something I did, makes me feel good. And that's something that made that a good day. Not that particular thing, but that event being a good day.
Every day I go to work's my best day. I think my best day was the day I graduated. It opened up so many opportunities to me. This department has matured me more than I ever learned. If it wasn't for this job, I wouldn't have my house. I wouldn't have my wife that I have. I wouldn't have the vehicles I have. I wouldn't live where I live. And I want to pay the community back for putting me in such a place that I would never been had I gone to any other job. So I have to say it's the day I graduated. There's never been one day that stands out more than any other day. There are good days and bad days, but they all pretty much are all good days.
On this job's unique because you run into quite a few best days. I think one of the best days was when I signed up and I got it because I felt that was an accomplishment. When I passed paramedic school, because that was difficult too, and got the license that said you were a paramedic. And one of the best days, and I've had a couple of guys who fortunately was there that I was able to share this day with, because we were working together on the engine, was I'm at my desk and there's a knock on my door, and this couple comes in to the station, a nice couple, and the man says, do you recognize her? And I looked at his girlfriend. I said, no, I don't recognize her at all. And he says, she was dead and you guys revived her. And I'm like, what? He says, do you remember going to the gym? And this gal basically was doing some exercise at the gym, and she just in front of everybody hit the ground and was pulseless and non-breathing. And when we got there, I had a good crew with me that day. Everything lined up just right, and we were able to bring her back. We bring a lot of people back, but they don't last. They die either that night or they'll die like a week later or something. But when you have a person that comes back and it has no deficits whatsoever, is able to talk to you and everything, that was nice. And she's a nice lady. And one of the funniest things that she told me about too, that I remember, she says, who wrote the report? I said, well, I wrote the report. And she said, I want to thank you. I said, why? She said, you put down that I was 35 years old. And I think she said she was like 50. And I was like, you? I mean, So that was, as funny as that was, that also made my day, that I made her feel younger. And she was, because she looks very young. So, but, it all culminated to that one call.
Did she have a heart attack?
Yeah, her heart just stopped. Her heart stopped. She wasn't breathing. Fortunately, they had some people trained in CPR at the gym, so they started the process immediately. But when we got there, still, she wasn't responding to anything. And because we had a good crew, very good crew that I worked with that day, brought her back. And we communicate to this day. So, if anything, that has made it worth it.
Best day. There's no one day that stands out as a best day, but I think me and my colleagues are all pretty fortunate and in a rare position to say we actually save lives over the years, and I can say I've saved a lot of lives over the years. There's something special about that. Yeah. But as far as a particular best day, I just know that when you've actually made a difference for somebody and you've made them feel considerably better, either physically or mentally, and then when the run's over and they look you in the eye and thank you. And it's not just a polite thank you, but it's a real heartfelt, sincere thank you when you just connect. Every time that happens, that's my best day.
I think probably the worst day I ever had, it was the first child abuse call that I'd ever gone on. I was working for Los Angeles. I was working with a girl who's one of the floor captains at the dispatch center nowadays. And we had this little, I can't remember if it was a boy or girl, but the child was somewhere between 14 and 18 months old. And the baby was dead when we got there. But you know, when you're going through school, they teach you all these classic signs of child abuse, what to look for, and this kid just about had every one of them. There wasn't a patch of skin on this kid that wasn't black and blue, and the cigarette burns, and that was pretty profound. The girl that I was working with at the time, Gail had less than 6 months on. And the cops and everybody, the whole world was there already. You know, we knew when we walked in that we weren't going to work this child up, and it felt pretty helpless. I was pretty pissed. And the only thing that I thought that I could do was just document. It seemed like I wrote for a week on that report. I filled out that 902, and then I think I went to a page 2 and page 3. And of course, at the time I thought, well, the cops are here, the true experts. This is a crime scene. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I thought, you know, maybe somehow, some way, if they missed something on their report, maybe it would be in mine. And that was the only thing that I felt that I could do for that kid. That sucked.
Worst day, I was a fairly new paramedic, probably only a couple, 3 years on the job, right under our dorm window, Fire Station 47. Two-story station, dorms upstairs. There was a double homicide on the sidewalk right below the dorm window. Normally we respond to a scene, to an accident, an incident that's 10, 15 minutes old. Some of the dust has settled. In this instance, we heard, and some of the guys looked out the window and watched this incident go down, and we were on top of it. There was no time for the dust to settle. There was no time to prepare mentally, and I don't know how graphic to get. Again, a double homicide. 2 teenagers were mowed down with a shotgun. The young lady that I went to try to treat initially was agonal respirations. She was dying right in front of me, and I had heard the whole thing happen. Right next to this young lady was her pager on the sidewalk next to the pool of blood that was growing, and the pager was vibrating. The pager was alerting, and on the screen was Mom. And through the hour and a half long incident, finishing paperwork and pronouncing her dead, her mom kept paging her. And the pager kept buzzing and moving, and Mom. That's, yeah, it was absolutely the worst day.
My worst day. It was before I had kids. I was a new paramedic, and we were dispatched to a 5-month-old not breathing baby. And to have a distressed parent hand you a limp child, and with that look in their eyes like, oh good, you're here because now you're going to save my baby's life, and knowing in your heart there was nothing we can do, and trying to communicate with the parents, having them up front crying, you can hear them crying, and back in the back of the ambulance doing CPR on a baby you knew but yet you couldn't give up and tell them it wasn't going to survive. So you're fighting with yourself on what's a Sid's baby, and then having the parents look at you like, did you save my baby, and knowing that you didn't, and that look of disappointment. That it stayed with me for a long time, and that's not the only call that I've had as Sid's baby, but it messed me up as a parent. When I had my own children, I knew there was always that potential that babies could just die out of nowhere. And it made me a very nervous mom, again, robbing me of that naive perspective as a parent. I saw what bad things could happen. So, I mean, as a new parent, I didn't sleep. I mean, I watched my kids sleep thinking that they're going to stop breathing at any moment. So I wish I wish I hadn't seen or been exposed to that type of call, but it's a part of our job. So that was probably the worst call I've been on, and it stayed with me the longest.
You know, I think that's a difficult question for me for many reasons, which is you get a lot of bad days.
When any of us as a fire family gets hurt, it's not a good thing. And I remember having a call with a captain at Fire Station 61. I was working engine 60, engine 82. He got electrocuted on a ladder pipe while he was climbing a ladder. We got assigned rapid extraction of the captain, and we were pulling him off the ladder, and he was non-responsive, non-breathing. And we put him on the ground, and to see one of us not breathing in that kind of shape makes that a bad day. He ended up living, he ended up continuing on the job, but anytime one of us gets hurt, that makes it a rough day.
I can't say I've really had a worse day. I think the hardest days were when I was at home and we got the phone call that Eric and Mike died with Pug in the Norma Vita, I believe her name was, the gal in the helicopter, that they died. And one day either way, I could have been on that helicopter. If they'd have called in sick and I'd have been there, or the day it would have happened the day before, because I was at 81's on their station, just on a different shift. And the neatest thing about it was that nobody called anybody. Nobody said, do you know, except for the initial notification from somebody. But there were 6 people on each 3 shift, and the 12 off shifters all went in. Nobody ever called anybody. It was a family. It was a little bit of a brotherhood. There were some tensions there. Each shift didn't get along great, but when it came time for knuckles down, brass tacks, you know, everybody showed up, and it just showed the solidity of that station and the people that were there. And I think it's throughout our department, county and city, and FDNY. I think some of the saddest days I've had were when I went back to New York City to attend funerals for firemen that died in 9/11, and then went back for the memorial service for them. And probably another one ranks right up there is when I was a pallbearer for my best friend Lane Kemper, who died of cancer. And I go to retirement dinners, and I bring his name up at every one of them, so he's never forgotten.
As a paramedic, you go on a lot of worst experiences. And that's the one thing that they don't train you in paramedic school, the one thing that you don't see in the TV shows, that you're going to have a lot of bad days, and they don't train you on how to handle bad days. But I've had my share. Some that's given me nightmares. The very first one that put me over the edge was a kid who was crushed in between 2 cars. I won't go into details with that. Then the other one that obviously sticks out, I had like a 10-year-old kid that once we got into the house, he was being held captive by his dad as a hostage. And I found the kid amongst all the smoke and everything. And when I got up to him, I moved his body, and he was decapitated. So his head kind of fell off. And but that I still have thoughts about. But the one call that I think of every day, just about every day, if not weekly, is when my 2 partners got killed on Fire 3. It was the helicopter just fell apart, and it was Eric and Mike, and it was tough because I'd gone through the academy with one of them. went through fire training with the same guy, had served on different assignments, and then for a while I was temporarily working with Eric quite a bit because my partner had family issues and had to leave for a while. So we became like partners, even though he was working quite a bit of overtime. And I love those two guys. And the helicopter crashed, killed both of them. And I cried for a week straight. And so that I would tag as one of my worst days.
Most painful.
Most very painful. I think about them all the time. Yeah.
Worst day, that unfortunately is easy to recall. An estranged father, his wife wouldn't reconcile, so he came home with a gun and shot himself, his wife, and all his little kids. And it was graphic, like something out of a horror movie. I mean, I'm not going to describe it here for obvious reasons, but the sights and the smells were the stuff of a nightmare. I mean, horrific.
This job has absolutely defined and changed how I view people. It's given me the unique opportunity to see people in a way that very few other people get to see people. Would it be better to be part of the general public and have rose-colored glasses on? Probably easier, but that's not what I signed up for. So getting to see people at their lowest moments has absolutely changed the way I see people.
You get to see people in every perspective. The humanity, how people treat each other, how they treat themselves, how they react at the worst day of their life. We get to see everyone on their worst day. We rarely get to see people on their best day. So the worst comes out in people, and sometimes the best comes out in people. So to have people under that amount of stress when we arrive, it's an interesting perspective. You get to see things that normal people shouldn't have to see. There's a lot of good people in this world, and they all aren't wearing badges, and they're not all in the heroes professions. There's a lot of really good, helpful people that are just good Samaritans, and it's nice to see that still exists. And then there's a lot of people that just don't have any God left in them. They're just walking zombies, and it's to see a shell of a person that you knew used to be real, and it's almost like they're non-existent. Just homeless. The people in Skid Row, and it's just the people that are using drugs and abusive to themselves and each other. It's just that's the sad part of humanity that I wish I wasn't exposed to, but I know exists.
Yeah, I think for the most part, again, like alluded to or talked about earlier, you see a lot of things that most people don't see. You try to tell people outside of our culture and our kind of brother cultures of police and people work in hospitals, and they not only have no clue, they cannot believe the stuff you tell them. It's an alternate universe that we work in of the dregs of society. Can we take 5?
Yeah, go for it.
Yes, ma'am. How may I help you?
Yeah, I want to say that I'm a little bit more tolerant towards people. I think you have to learn a certain amount of patience when you become a paramedic. And I think over the years, that's one thing I've developed. You can't let the small things get to you. You got to remember that you are seeing them at the worst of times, and you have to learn patience. And I think that's one of the things that has changed me, is that I've developed a certain amount of patience around people, which I think has been a good thing.
I don't have an arrogant attitude like I used to as a fireman. I know when I used to go on a fire as a fireman, talk to people, and they go, you'd ask them what's wrong, and they say what was wrong. And one time I said, sounds like you need an attorney more than you do a paramedic. And it was was just the wrong attitude, you know, and it got me in trouble. And I got to the point now where people need our assistance, and I don't say anything negative on scene, but boy, you should hear the tirades we go into when we get back in the rig and start talking about them. But we never let those people know, and we treat them with kid gloves, because you never know who you're dealing with. You may be out in the desert dealing with somebody that's a dirtbag, and well, they're that way because they've been camping for a week, but they're a senator or someone that works for the government that will either write a scathing letter about you or a letter of praise for you. So treat everybody the same.
It makes me very leery of people. I'm constantly, when I go anywhere or everywhere, I'm constantly scanning the room, seeing what's about to happen next, in case something happens next. I'll go to a restaurant or anywhere, and I usually make sure that my back's to a wall. So it does that. Once again, I wish that I had that innocence that people don't, or that the general public basically has, because it's made it. So I limit my association with people. I'm just very close to those on the job, it seems like, more than anybody else. It's funny because I hate answering the phone. I don't like talking on phones. And yet it's funny because when I'm at work, that's my job, is to answer the phone. And it's weird because I can turn on a switch and I don't have a problem answering the phone at work. But at home, I would rather not talk on the phone. And it kind of makes me feel sorry for people in the way that I could see things, I feel, and I could see things coming, and a lot of people don't. So there's that.
Yeah, I think I had a more optimistic view, or maybe naive view of people, thinking they're essentially good, but I think mankind is essentially evil and very sinful in his nature. Left to himself, he does horrible things to himself and to other people. And that's been a real harsh eye-opener to see how people actually live and treat each other, the absolute disregard for a human life. It's just, most people have no idea the degradation of mankind. And it's kind of like police see this day in and day out, but because we're on the front lines too, we get called in and we get to see the effects of that horrible evil out there in the world. It's a pretty harsh reality.
Yes and no. I would recommend to anyone that wants to do this job, I say get the heck out of California and go do it someplace else.
Fire service in general, yes. The paramedic portion, I think it's been my ultimate goal. It's been fantastic for me. I at the risk of sounding conceited, it's definitely not for everyone. I've seen hotshot firemen come through who decide they want to be a paramedic, and they don't have the passion or the ability to do what I would call even a decent job. If that person were to ask me, I'd say no, you shouldn't. But I believe in the program, I believe in the department, and I believe that there are people who can truly make a difference. And that's why I did it, was to make a difference.
I think the biggest lesson that in life, but people will help you if you ask for it. We're always out there helping people that we don't even know, and I think something that's hard for me, and I know that's hard for other people, is to ask for help. I've got to go.
Okay.
I'm getting to run.
That's actually
is that we're good?
the gist of it. Yeah.
Okay.
I honestly tell them it's going to be a good life, but there will be some painful days, there will be some hard days, your body will pay for it. You definitely need to take care of yourself, both mentally and physically, and financially, and all in all, it's it's a good job, it's a good organization, but it could be better.
Absolutely. The experiences, the calls that I've had over the 20 years of doing this, I've learned a lot. And the biggest thing, I've developed a lot of good friendships with people in the department that enjoy and do the same things that I do. That's something that they can't take away from me. And if I never did this job, I wouldn't have. So would I do it again? Absolutely. I love coming to work. I like being a paramedic. I like being an engineer. I like being a firefighter. There's not a day that I don't wake up not wanting to come to work. And can't take that away from me.
If this is what you want to do, yes. Please go into this with your eyes wide open. You're going to have your good days as well as your worst days. It's not for the squeamish, and it's going to leave a mark on you. Now, what you do with that is up to you. You got to make it work for you. You got to give it your all.
So if you had the chance to go back, would you do it all over again?
You know, I thought about that question, and that's the question that stumped me a lot. But here's the thing. When everything's said and done, and I finally leave this planet, I know, because of me and my partner, that there are people who are walking the face of this planet because of my actions. And that's the thing that I look at that helps me try to keep a positive attitude about everything.
For certain people, yeah. I mean, it's not for everybody. I think for some people it would just be, it would just harm them. It might be more than they could deal with, and it would really sour them on life. But it has its rewards too.
But it's the greatest job in the world.
You have any advice for those who are interested in becoming a paramedic?
Become a good firefighter first. That's what this job's all about, is being a firefighter. Then become a paramedic. If you're a paramedic first, learn the job, and then bring those skills to the table once you get back out as a medic. Learn your job. You're paid to do your job and know your equipment. And if you roll up on scene, you don't know your job and you don't know your equipment, how to use it, when to use it, in the city or the county, whatever department you're working for, those taxpayers aren't getting their money's worth out of you. And the last thing I want to say for anybody who wants to be a firefighter and or paramedic is that we're paid for what we're willing to do, not for what we actually do. Just ask 343 New York firemen. And remember, not one of those guys, there's not one incident of any New York City fireman of insubordination or walking away from that building or saying my family's more important, which they all knew their family was way more important than that building. But they did their job, and 343 of them died, and just remember those guys.